Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to yet another episode of For Honor Executions Graded, the series where I take a look at each individual For Honor hero and grade their executions. I take a look at each individual unique execution, graded on a criteria of 4 different aspects, and then I average out all the grades to give us an overall look at this hero's executions from a mostly objective perspective. Now, for those who don't know how I do this, who are new to the series, take a look in the upper right hand corner of the screen or down in the description. You'll be given a link to a video called That's an Execution, a video I made some time ago where I explain my rubric and my criteria for how I grade. That'll give you an idea of what I'm doing here. But if you are familiar with this series but still need a crash course, a reminder of how I do things, this is what we do. I'm going to look at each individual unique execution of the hero. I'm then going to grade for 4 criteria. How lethal is it? Like, could it kill? How realistic is it? Is it something that could be realistically done? Is it superhuman or not? How efficient is it? Is it something that you would want to use on the battlefield? And then how cool is it? Which is the only subjective part where I look at how much I enjoy the execution. Does it meet their personality? Does it fit for who they are? That kind of thing. And today we're looking at the Black Prior. We've already done all the Vanguards and the Assassins, so we've been working our way through the heavies, and I am very excited to look at the Black Prior. Now, I was a little worried at first because Black Prior only has 10 executions, unlike most of the other heroes who have around 17 executions. So his score is going to come out a little bit differently than the others, but I'm still going to be as honest as I possibly can with this. I know that there are some executions that people really, really like with Black Prior, and some that people really, really hate, and I am also on that bandwagon. But I'm very excited to take a look at this, so let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. First up is Molo Ultro Adsunt. Alright, so looking at this from a lethal perspective, this is definitely a 4. You're slitting hard across the throat. Judging by the slow draw like that, it's going to be a very deep cut. We're getting a lot of blood coming out there. This person will die. For realism, this is a 4 for realism. This is something you could totally do. You could totally just draw your opponent back, lay them across the shield, and just run the sword across their neck like that. In fact, keeping the sword of the neck is an incentive to keep them from trying to get up. It's almost like a threat. Don't move while I slit your throat. You're dead either way, that kind of thing, which very much works. For efficiency, it's also a 4. I actually really like the fact that she goes down on one knee and lets the warden lay on her shield like that, using him as a effective shield against enemies from the front. And since she's made a smaller target of herself by ducking down like that, it's going to be harder for an enemy to interrupt her. Plus, it's a pretty quick execution, all things considered. He falls back into the shield, she slits the throat, throws him off the shield, and then she's ready to move on. So that works very well too. And then for cool factor, I admit, I really, really like this execution. It's very badass. It fits the Black Prior's dark, menacing personality. Just overall awesome. So that's a 4 for cool factor. I really, really like this execution. It feels like what you'd want from a Black Prior, from a Dark Knight of Justice, or of whatever you want it to be. So that's right. We start off with a 16 out of 16, which is a 100%. Starting right out the gate with a 100. Very proud of you, Black Prior. That's not bad. Next up is Slowly But Surely. Ooh, alright. So, for Slowly But Surely, I'm going to go ahead and give that a lethality score of 4. This would definitely kill. The sword is inserting directly into the center of the chest. This is going to get the heart. And the slow push in, you're making sure that you're ensuring that this is going to be lethal. You are ensuring that this is going to kill. Definitely like that. For realism, I gave it a 4 as well. You could do this. The only part that I'm questionable about is she uses the shield to stab his foot into the ground, it looks like. That's a little silly. Plus, we see later that he falls without the shield being stuck in his foot, so I don't know what the goal was there. Like, did she stab his foot? It's a little hard to tell from that angle, but it looks like that was the goal. But otherwise, everything else looks pretty realistic. For efficiency, I did give it a 2. This takes a little bit too long, especially with the slow drag. Once the sword was inserted into the chest, she didn't need to do that slow drag. That's a little unnecessary. So because she took too much time on that and it was unnecessary to do that, that's a 2. But for cool factor, I love this one. This is a really cool execution. This is a 4. Again, it fits Black Prior. It fits just absolute monster of war. Because here's the thing, even though I ranted about, Ravier and her personality, the Black Prior personality has always been kind of a dark knight of justice, or a dark knight kind of thing. So definitely some more vicious or ferocious style executions definitely fit. So that's definitely a 4. That gives this execution a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. Next is Up to the Hilt. Okay, all right. So for Up to the Hilt, that's going to be a lethality of 4. Lethality of 4. Because what's happening is the cross guard is inserting itself into the neck, and then with the throw, you're yanking the cross guard out when you do it. So you're ripping out a piece of the throat and the neck. So you're taking, you're probably going to damage the arteries and the veins that go up into the head, into the body, and then you're finishing them off by another strike to the other side of the neck. So massive bleed out. Severed veins and arteries on both sides of the neck. This person is going to bleed out within moments and die. They are finished. In fact, it's kind of funny. I think it's interesting that the Black Prior finishes off with a second crossguard strike to the neck, because it looks like when he hits the ground, he's not moving. It looks like he's already dead. She's just finishing him off. So good follow through. For realism, though, I did have to give it a 3, because I do not believe that you could so easily flip someone like that while just using the cross guard. I feel like the cross guard, consider the fact that for a moment that it's not just about how strong the Vortiger is or the leverage of the shield. Warden's going to be a bit heavy. How are you able to get enough strength and power to yank something that heavy even over a shield? I think that's just a little hard to believe. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it was a little hard to believe. And yes, I know, Black Prior's all about flipping. I know that. Just because she has the move in game doesn't mean it's going to be possible. I mean, technically, I've seen the katana cut through Lawbringer's armor in the game. Like, that's not realistic either, but I digress. Point is, I gave this one a 3 for realism. For efficiency, I also give it a 3. Again, it takes a little too long. Like, don't get me wrong, it looks neat and I like the idea behind it. It's creative, but on a battlefield, you're not going to want to do this, especially if you get interrupted mid-execution. One thing to keep in mind about efficiency is think about the fact that you're on a battlefield and there are other warriors around you. If you get interrupted in the middle of this execution, are you in a good position to fight and defend yourself? Well, you have your shield, which is good, but you're holding the wrong side of your sword. So that's putting you in a bit of an awkward situation there, if I'm being perfectly honest. But still, that's why I gave it a 3. It's not the worst. And as for cool factor, I gave that a 3 as well. Again, it's not bad. I like this execution. It's pretty decent. My issue is it didn't wow me as much as some of the others, and I think part of it's because the cross guard flip, I think I like that. But then instead of hitting him again with a cross guard, what if she caught the sword on the handle and then stabbed into his head or stabbed into his chest? You know, actually, why did you have to use a cross guard to hit again? I feel like that, I don't think that was necessary. So that's why I gave that a 3, which gives this execution an overall score of 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Next is Molo Undique Cladus. All right, well, we finally get a head decapitation. That's a lethality of 4. Anytime the head comes off, you're dead. So that's a 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 2. This was hard. I had to think about this one. Was it a 3 or a 2? And it all comes down to that head coming off. All right, so looking at the way she strikes the chest and the foot, that's fine. But then she does a backhanded swing into the throat to take off the head. I see 2 problems, which is why it gets a 2. The first is the fact that it's a backhanded swing. Backhanded swings can have power, but quite often will lack precision and lack focus. So you're probably not going to have the direct focus and line of strike to get the head to come off that easily. Keep in mind that when you want to take off the head, like with a guillotine or an axe strike, you need to be direct. You need to be precise. You need to make sure that there is no sloppiness or waviness of the sword, because otherwise you might not take it off. A backhanded strike won't always guarantee that. The second problem is if you look at where the sword hits, it looks like the very tip of the sword caught the neck. Like here, let's look at it from the other perspective. It looks like only the tip of the sword made contact. And even then, if it wasn't just the tip of the sword, it might have missed the head entirely. But then it just sends the head spinning. I don't know. It takes a little bit more effort than that to take off the head. I know that there are some swords out there that can take off the head. but they have to require a two-handed swing most of the time, and they also have to be precise, and a backhanded swing I don't think is going to get that, so I gave it a 2. For efficiency, I gave it a 4. I like the fact that she knocked him to the ground to finish him off. This is usually a good way to finish someone off in a battlefield. If you get them on the ground, it makes it easier to put them to death. You know, that's what you want to do in a battlefield. It's better to put them on the ground and kill them than leave them standing and kill them, because if you leave them standing, there's a chance they could fight back or resist or make it harder for you. So get them on the ground first. For cool factor, I gave it a 3. I do like this execution. I think, I don't know. I just feel like that decapitation kind of hurts it for me. But that's just me. Maybe what she could have done is at the very beginning when she's cutting the chest like that, what if instead she cut at the neck to start the bleed out, so that then once she goes in for the final decapitation swing, it's that much easier to take off the head. I think I would have liked that more. Which gives this execution another 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Lovely. Next up is Vortigers Regards. Oh, God. Oh, okay. So, lethality 4. That is a lethality of 4 because, I mean, the head did come off, so he's dead. Yeah. Too bad everything else is terrible. For realism, this is 1. You threw your shield through his neck. All right. Lots of people like to say to me, Raven, you need to use the default weapon and armor sets so that you can get a more accurate understanding of what these do. And if you look at the default shield of the Vortiger, you know, it's razor. It has razors on the sides. It has blades on the side. Look, even if it did have blades on the side, there are other problems with this. First of all, the weight of the shield would not just go through his neck. It would knock him over. That is a heavy shield flying into your throat. It's not going to make you stand there. You're not going to stand up and let that go through you. It's going to knock you the hell over. Second of all, if it really did go through his neck, why is his head just sitting there? If it went clean through his neck, there is no connection between his head and his body. His body should crumple like a sack of potatoes, and his head should be rolling to the ground. Instead, he stands there as if there's still any signal between his head and his body, and without him falling off, even though there's no connection between head and body anymore. This defies the laws of physics. It defies the laws of reality. I was so tempted to give this a 0 for realism. The only reason it doesn't, the only reason I decided to keep the 1 is because, you know, the stab to the foot was realistic. Yes, you stabbed him in the foot. Good job. Everything else about that was stupid. But it gets worse, because when you look at efficiency, efficiency is a 1. Again, you put your sword into his foot, okay, and then you threw your shield into his neck. You're disarmed. You've thrown away all your weapons. So now if someone interrupts you, you don't have a shield and you don't have a sword. You're dead. You're going to have to fight barehanded. Not a good place to be. Bad efficiency. Plus, why would you throw your shield away? You have no reason to throw your shield away. That was dumb. That was very, very dumb. And then for cool factor, do I need to say it? 1. I hate this execution. I think it is the worst execution that Blackbriar has. I hate the fact that this was her Hero Fest execution. Of all the Hero Fest executions we've gotten, this is the worst. And it was given to one of my favorite characters. It's disgusting. It is absolutely terrible. It is an awful, awful execution. The only thing it does is it does secure a kill with a decapitation. So for that reason and that reason alone, it gets a 7 out of 16, which is a 44%. This execution is deplorable. I hate it. I hate it. Next up is Erzebets Prowess. Okay, Erzebets Prowess. That's a 4 for lethality. We have a strike into the thigh, which brings him down, then a strike into the throat, and then knockout with a shield. Once the sword goes into the throat, that's going to definitely be lethal, but then you knocked it out with the shield. That's cutting open the arteries again. That's cutting open the veins in the neck. Massive bleed out. This person's dead. They're going to be choking on their own blood, really. For realism, that's a 4. You could totally do that. Like, yeah, you could strike the thigh, bring them to the ground, stab it in the neck, and then knock it out with the shield. I like that. I actually really, really like that. I like the force behind that hit, too. Just, boom, it just knocks it right out. Watch it. Boom! I like that. Good. Lots of solid force behind that. So realism is a 4. For efficiency, that's also a 4. Again, you brought the opponent to the ground, you knocked the sword out, you moved on, you're ready for the next battle. Very good. I like that. So that's a 4. For cool factor, it is a 3. Even though I like the fact that she knocked out the sword with the shield, a part of me isn't as big a fan of it. I would have liked it. You know what? I know that I keep talking about decapitations, but you know what would have been nice? What if after she stabbed through the throat, she pulls out and then does a strong, solid swing in the neck to take off the head? I would have actually liked that. I think that would have been really cool. I mean, this isn't bad, but I was kind of hoping for a bit more. So that gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%, which I'm glad for because that helps after that really bad execution from earlier. So yes, 94%. Good job. Next is Vortigers Reckoning. All right, so for lethality, we've got another 4. So we got a strike to the chest, bash to the head, then spear right in the center. Got a lot of blood coming out because of that. This person is going to die. It actually looked like she stabbed into she cut open the chest. Looks like she got the heart. It's a little, well, the sword is actually a little lower than the heart, but it's still center mass, so that's going to get a lot. That's going to get the stomach. That might get the liver. That's going to be getting a lot of vital organs. This person's not going to be patched up very easily, especially after she punches him down like that. That's just drawing the blade through the body even more. So now that person's dead. That's a 4 for lethality. For realism, I do give it a bit of a 3 there. The strike is good. The shield bash is good. I don't like how when she stabs into the body, it does bring the body down, but it still goes clean through the body, and he's still kind of stuck on the sword. To me, his whole body should have just hit the ground. Like, the sword should go through him, yes, but his body should just fall on the ground, not the sword hit the ground first. Look, see? His body's not on the ground. It's like he's been impaled on the sword, and his body can't sink to the ground until she punches him. And that's not how that would work. His body would be speared to the ground is what would happen. So that's a little unrealistic, but I'll give it a 3. For efficiency, it's also a 3. Takes a little bit too much time. You didn't need to do the punch. He's already dead because of the impalement. You could just take your sword out of him now. You don't need to do the punch, although I do like the punch. That's pretty solid. And then for cool factor, I give it a 4. I do like this execution, admittedly. It fits with Blackprior's style. The punch is very satisfying. And to be honest, it's a good use of the sword and shield combo. The shield knocking them in the face, then impaling them. Definitely like that. This feels solid. I'll give that a good score of a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. Not bad at all. I do like this one. Next up is Severe Sentence. Ooh, okay. So for Severe Sentence, again, we've got a decapitation. That's a lethality of 4. This person is dead. You took off the head. For realism, I gave it a 2 for 2 reasons. Number 1, I don't think you could plant the shield in the ground like that and expect them to hold it up in that manner. The shield would probably topple down, especially considering you only put a little bit of the tip in. As soon as you put that shield into the ground and you bash his head into it, I feel like the shield should have fallen, especially since all of his weight is now leaning on the shield. I feel like the shield should have just fallen over. I don't know why it's propping him up like that. That's a little silly. And then the second problem, look at the sword. Let's look at it from the other perspective. I may need to see this from the other perspective to really get an appreciation for this. Yeah, why isn't the shield moving? That's one problem. I don't know. Did the sword... Maybe it's the animation. Maybe it's the way I'm looking at it. It looks like the tip barely touched his neck. Let me see it again. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell, but because of that, I'm kind of like, did the tip even get his neck? But you know what? I'll still say it's a 2 because of the shield thing only. The sword part is a little bit contentious. I would have liked to have seen a bit more, but also keep in mind that with his neck, look at this, his neck is resting on the shield. That means she wouldn't be able to cut his neck. The shield, like, think about it, like, take your hand and put it on your other hand. Imagine the top hand, take your hand, thumb up, and then take your other hand, thumb up, and put them on top of each other like you're putting bricks on bricks. Imagine that the bottom hand is the shield and the top hand is your neck. If you try to cut off the head, you're going to go through the neck and hit the top of your shield, not go all the way through, so that's a little weird. Again, I've been on realism too long, but there's something about this execution that bothers me a little bit. I do like I will not get on them about the decapitation, though. I believe that if you were to bring a sword down like this could decapitate. This is fine with me. It's just the way it was set up was a little odd, but that's just me. For efficiency, I gave it a 2. You put down your shield to set up this execution, which I'm not a fan of. And you also walked away from the body a little, like she kind of walked away shaking her head a little bit like she's disappointed, which fits her personality. But in a battlefield, you don't have time to kind of walk away like, oh, well, I guess you disappointed me. Oh, sight, take off your head. No, you hit them and then immediately take off the head. Don't walk away like that. That was a little weird. And then for cool factor, 4. Like I said, This is awesome. This fits. Slamming the shield into the ground, knock them in the head, and then just do this slow. I hate that I have to deal with this rubbish, and then just take them out. Definitely like that. But because of the other two parts, this is a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Ooh, sorry. Next up is Spinebreaker. This is one of her original executions, like her default. And it's also the first one where lethality, I've got to give it a 3. So he's alive here, then she slams her shield into his back, and then stabs just above it into the waistline. You're not going to hit anything really vital there. I mean, I guess you could say that this initial strike where she strikes his chest or his neck, it could be lethal. But look, he's getting up from it, so I don't think that that first strike means anything. This part should be where it's lethal, and she's stabbing into the waistline just below where all the vitals are. I don't think this would necessarily kill. I mean, I guess it could. If you got the spine, maybe it could paralyze, but I don't see this as necessarily a guaranteed death, so I gave it a 3 for lethality. For realism, it's a 4. You could do this. If you knock them into the ground, you could get on top of them and then put your shield onto their back and then their sword. So yeah, that's realistic. For efficiency, though, it is a 1. You took way too long with this one. You could have been a lot faster. One of the problems I see with Black Prior is they walk to everything. It's like they feel like they don't have to take their... They feel like they can take their time. They don't feel like there's any urgency. And on a battlefield, time is everything. So that's an efficiency of 1. For cool factor, it's a 2. This isn't one of my favorite executions. In fact, I wanted to get rid of it shortly after getting it. It does feel like something a Vortiger would do, but I like to think a Vortiger would be even more vicious than this. This feels more like a slow humiliation kind of kill, or like making an example of them, but I feel like Vortiger should be far more vicious. At least that's the way I see it. Plus, I feel like a Black Prior would try to guarantee the kill, which is what we've seen with a lot of these other executions. They're guaranteeing the kill, and this one, I could see them getting away from that. I really could. So yeah, that hurts them. This gives them a score of 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. What a shame. And finally, we have Limb Slicer. All right, Limb Slicer. Lethality 4. You've taken off the arm and then followed up with a slash to the stomach and a bash to the head. That's a lot of bleed out rapidly. They're not going to be able to breathe very easily because it looks like the shield struck their throat, which is going to make it difficult to breathe. So you're dealing with a loss of blood, stabbed in, slash to the gut, and you can't breathe. This is definitely going to kill. For realism, though, it is a 1. All right, let's talk about that arm being removed. This is Black Prior's fastest natural execution. It is ungodly fast, and it is hard to interrupt this one. So it's one of the best to be used in the gank, no question. But, now, thing is, the shield could not take off the arm. And yes, I know what the obvious argument's going to be. But some Black Prior shields have blades on the edges, so it could work then. Look. Even if I were to use the default Black Prior shield, it has spikes along the edges, and the most that would do is puncture the arm and maybe cause a severe laceration. It would not take the full arm off. Like, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to take the full arm off with just a shield bash. Like, you've got bone in the arm that is not as easy to cut through. You have muscles and ligaments in the arm that are not as easy to cut through. It is not that easy to take off an arm with just a shield. I don't see that happening. If it were the sword, we could talk about it. I think we could actually have a conversation about it being the sword, but the shield, I don't care if it has a blade on the edge. The shield is not designed to do that. Now, if she blocked his arm, didn't take it off, just blocked the arm, and then used her sword to cut the stomach and then cut the throat, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would say this is probably the perfect execution for Black Prior. But because she takes off that ruddy arm, yeah, realism of 1. For efficiency, though, it's 4. Like I said, fastest execution Black Prior has, incredibly effective. You get this done, you can move on, you're done with this opponent. I like that. For a cool factor, 3. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like this execution. I think it's awesome. But because that arm takeoff just blows my mind in terms of, I have to keep going, could you really do that? I don't think you could really do that. It does lose it a little bit for me, so that gives it a 3. But overall, that gives it a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. All right, guys, that does it. That is all of Blackprior's executions. So, after looking over all the executions and averaging up the grades, which means I add them all together and then divide by 10, because 10 was the total number, we got a grade of, wait for it, waiting for it, ready? A 79%. Wow, I genuinely wasn't expecting this because I know that there are some executions like Vortigers Regards, which I absolutely despise, and Spinebreaker, which I think is a little lazy. But genuinely, I was surprised by this grade, and I can tell you why I think the Black Prior got it. The Black Prior is lethal in almost every execution, with only one exception. Every single execution got a 4 for lethality. And as for the rest, the cool factor was on the high range, like a lot of them were 4s and 3s, so they got a lot of good cool factors. And for realism, I was surprised. While it was more on the average spectrum, only 2 weren't very realistic. The rest were kind of up there. So Black Prior had a high average in a lot of areas and always top tier when it came to lethality. So Black Prior really came in with a lot of lethality at their name. But the other reason is because Black Prior only has 10 executions. This means that the average is going to be a little different from all the others. And I know some might say, well, that's not entirely fair. I mean, I can't help that. But the fact is that if you're going to have fewer opportunities to score well, that means you better score well in all of them. And to be frank, Black Prior scored well in a lot of them. Most of the scores were above 60 or 70%. So yeah, I gotta give credit where credit's due. Black Prior, you did really well here. This may be one of the highest grades we've gotten in the execution series. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, if you're new to the series, check out the video, That's an Execution, where you can learn all about my rubric and understand how I do things. What do you think of Black Prior's executions? Do you think that they got the grades that they deserve? Do you think they should have been different? Let me know down in the comment section below, but be respectful about it. That's all I ask. Please don't attack me or tell me I don't know what I'm doing. That's not going to make me very happy. It's going to hurt my feelings. And who do you want to see next? We're doing all the heavies, so we've done Black Prior and we've done Warlord. Who do you think should be next, guys? I may release a poll later to decide, but you can let me know early down in the comments which ones you're excited about more. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, guys, I will see you in my next video. Take care.